Hi, welcome back again. It's been like a 10 minutes. Just took a small break, and the Rogue video is coming out later because, as I was speaking about in the last video, which I'm going to explain magic and how it works in. Just push this back. Okay, some back. So oh, sorry. Yeah. If you're international from City America, yeah, I'm Swedish. Sorry, just broke into my native native tongue for a moment. Tend to do that when I get seriously pissed off. Meaning if I, all right, damn, I'm going off track again. Well, well, I tend to do stuff, but generally, I'm going to explain finally how magic works and how the how magic and a little bit tips for you new dungeon masters how to deal with it and how to handle how magic can be treated in your world. And I'll give an example from the civil my personal campaign, which I explained what it's called, the Fall of the Empire, and how the Empire in that one treats magic. So to explain magic is to explain first I have to introduce something called the weave. The weave is kind of like a blanket that covers the entire world. And basically think it as a net, actually. It's probably more better. And every time a magician or someone that casts magic tries to cast a spell, they're basically just bending the weave to what they want to do. But the weave isn't indestructible. It can be destroyed, which can cost wild magic or dead magic zones. Wild magic is, well, as I introduce as the wild magic sorcerer is, it's uncontrollable. Spells tends to be like, okay, there's a small chance that your spell goes wild, meaning it change, meaning something else happens. And dead magic zones are basically any spellcaster, they can cast a spell. They can't cast their spells there because it's dead magic, they can't. The weave isn't there, so they can't cast the spells. But that's basically how magic works is the person, if you say you want to cast a fireball, then you're bending the weave to cast your fireball. And in the game there are two different kinds of magic. There is divine magic and arcane magic. I'll start off with divine magic, which is what a cleric, paladin, druid, and ranger does. Paladin and rangers are half casters, meaning they don't get as many spells, but they still cast them. They've got access to them, like naturally without any picking any subclasses like the Arcane Trickster Rogue. But I'll introduce that one later. But generally, it's very. The idea is that you are not casting your spells. You are working with someone else that is casting the magic for them. For a cleric and a paladin, this is a god. For an example, Zeus. You can have made a Zeus is the one maybe striking down, giving your cleric magic, and that he uses for helping people. Paladins tend to choose an oath like the Oath of Vengeance, the Oath of Protection. Generally, like paladins tend to be like holy knights, knights with the power to bitch slap a god, with God, with God to bitch slap everything that is evil. So yeah, that's generally how they tend to cast spells. They aren't really like devoting their entire service to a god. For rangers and druids, it isn't a god that gives the magic, it's nature. Meaning a druid and a ranger draw their magic from nature itself. Because, well, at least from what I remember of the D&D lore, I don't think nature is a god. It's just something that exists, and it seems at least to have a sentience because it can choose like, okay, this person is a druid, this one is not. But that's like basically how that happens. So generally, divine magic isn't my personal favorite. It's unique, but I really, but we'll then go over to my personal favorite part other half, the arcane magic. Basically, think of magic as electricity. It's useless, can be dangerous if we use it wrongly, but think a arcane caster as an appliance. Like for an example, a toothbrush. Meaning we use it for good, or make it more usable. And there are in total 4 classes, 3 of which are full-blown arcane casters, meaning they are, and the 4th one is always been like half. It's really been like the class that is like in the middle, because it has parts of arcane magic but also parts of divine. But I'll explain that more probably, and yeah, I'll explain that later. So, if you watched my previous video, a sorcerer is an arcane caster, meaning they get, as I said in that video, due to either a something weird happened to them when they were born, or due to an exotic bloodline. And they really, and within, I said 15 spells. That's how many spells they can have, because they have like a solid 40 or something, just to clarify a bit. So it isn't that they just only have access to 15 spells, it's just that they can only learn 15 spells. Wizards are very much bookish. They learn their magic through studying, which is why they have the largest spell list, because remember, I don't remember all of this by head, but if I remember correctly, the entirety of the wizard spell list is 1.5 pages long. That is the longest any other class has, meaning they tend to have access to basically every spell in the entire game, except like a few that are very like specific, like the Warlock's Eldritch Blast and the Bard's Vicious Mockery. But they tend to learn a lot. They're bookish, they study their magic. Then we got Bards. Bards, to explain them quickly, because I'll explain them in a later video, is basically they are, like, really, if you have ever wanted to play a character that's like, oh, I want to do everything, I want him to be a jack of all trades, that isn't bad at anything, then Bard is probably one you will pick, because they are, with the Warlock, they have a D8 hit dice, meaning they are a more combat-oriented class than casters than a sorcerer or a wizard, which only have a D6, a 6-sided die. They got an 8-sided die. The only really thing you need to know about bards is that they don't really got access to that many damage dealing spells, meaning you'll probably be used as support, like make your enemies weaker and your allies stronger. And really, one thing that they are very good is that they can multitask. For an example, their signature cantrip or signature spell, Vicious Mockery, is basically that they're throwing magical insults at someone, basically telling them to fuck off or something mean, and yeah, sure, it only deals a maximum of 4 psychic damage, but then they also get disadvantage on any attack rolls, which in D&D terms, to explain advantage and disadvantage is that you're rolling 2 20-sided die and choosing the lower of the 2, while if you have advantage, you roll 2 and choose the higher, meaning there is a better chance that he'll miss, which is good, meaning you'll do a little bit of damage and helping your party, which is the Bard's whole real thing, is that they can multitask, they can do a lot of stuff, like they can damage someone and help their allies at the same time. Then the final one is Warlock. Well, Warlocks are very unique things. They are, because they have technically made a pact with someone else that gives them magic, but they aren't really that divine. They don't follow them. It's more like a situation Okay, for an example, oh, you saved my life. All right, here, I'll, as as repayment, I'll serve you and do your dirty work. Meaning they get access to arcane magic, but they get it from another being, which is why warlocks tends to be a lot more like, why they really are like, because as I just described, they have parts of arcane magic because they are technically classified as an arcane caster, but they get their magic from someone else, meaning they really are like in the middle between arcane and divine because they kind of use both, like both at the same time. They are a combination between the two. This is probably a short video because magic really isn't that hard to explain, but nice seeing you guys.